Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsay. From the world of hip-hop comes one of the most iconic rap albums of all time, featuring a legendary one-of-a-kind collective that meshes different styles with a fury and intensity that catapults them to the heights of rap royalty for years to come. We're talking about Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers. Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers is the debut album from rap icons the Wu-Tang Clan. It was produced by the group's unofficial leader, RZA, and was released on the Loud label on November 9, 1993. The Wu-Tang Clan was formed in New York in 1992 and originally featured the lineup of RZA, GZA, Inspectah Deck, U-God, Ghostface Killah, Method Man, Raekwon, Masta Killa, and ODB. Cappadonna later joined the group in 1995. 36 Chambers combined a mix of each rapper's style and flow with a backdrop of hard beats and kung fu movie clips to deliver a unique sound experience in the hip-hop genre. The album was recorded at Firehouse Studio in New York City during late 1992 into early 1993. RZA took the reins of the project and acted as the record's producer, mixer, arranger, and programmer. The Wu-Tang Clan had a very limited budget for the album, forcing them to record in a small studio, which often saw all 9 members crammed into one space at the same time. Budgetary restraints also meant that RZA had to use cheap equipment, which added a gritty, raw sound to the album. Though 36 Chambers had low production values, the overall themes of street life, mixed with soul music samples and martial arts heroics, set the record apart from everything else happening in hip-hop at the time. The album steered the genre away from acts like A Tribe Called Quest and led rap into an edgier, streetwise aggressive direction. The chemistry between the Wu-Tang's members was evident throughout the record and solidified their star power as the hottest rap group in the industry. The 36 Chambers was a critical success upon its release. It peaked at number 41 on the Billboard Top 200 and number 8 on the Billboard Hip Hop charts. The record was certified platinum and is widely regarded as a landmark album. It changed the scene and led the way for the surge of East Coast rap that dominated the industry in the 1990s. Thanks to the determination of the creative forces behind the album, as well as the innovative music and gritty sound, 36 Chambers remains one of the most important, most legendary rap albums ever made. And that's the lowdown on Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers. The famous old cliche, story, situation, idea, suggestion, whatever you want to call it, scenario maybe is the right word. What do you take on a deserted island? What book are you taking? What album are you taking? A ship to get back home never seems to be the answer you take to a deserted island. That would always be my first answer. But usually that's not allowed. So then it falls to, assuming you have some sort of electricity to have TV. I don't know. You can make this thing very complex, kids. That's kind of the point here. For me, it's really hard to narrow down music. Again, got to have a way to listen to it. I get it. But like, what album would you take? If you could only take one, all right, well, that's tough. Give me 5. Give me at least 5. Fine, you can have 5. So in my top 5 albums that I would take on a deserted island, one of those albums, and I'm going to cut right to the chase, is Enter the Wu-Tang Clan 36 Chambers. Without question. It's one of the 5 albums that I take. That's how much I dig this record. I discovered it way after the thing happened, because when it was released, I wasn't that much into hip hop. I wasn't anti hip hop, but I just wasn't much into it. I knew who they were. I appreciated the entertainment factor, but I just wasn't into it. Fast forward years later, I'm more into it now than I ever have been. And as we record this, it's 2021. More into Jay-Z and DMX now than I ever have been, and definitely into Wu-Tang Clan. This is by far one of my favorite records. Forget the word rap. I don't even care about that. It's just, for me personally, it's one of my favorite records in my rotation right now, and probably that I've ever heard. And we've done album reviews here on the 6M before. You guys know that. And sometimes we'll do an album review and it'll be like, okay, well, we got to this track. Well, sometimes I skip that. Yeah, me too. But I'm going to be straight with you, Phil, as we're kicking it off here today. I don't skip any track on this album. I don't know where you're coming from on it, but man, I mean, there's spoken bits on here. There's skits at the beginning of songs and tail ends of songs, whatever. But I don't really skip much of anything on here, except some of the spoken word stuff, which we'll get into here shortly. So, what about you, man? Is there anything on this album? I mean, just jumping off right now, is there anything on this album that you skip by, or do you enjoy the whole thing from start to finish?
Uh, Gotta be honest with you. I over the last week when we talked about reviewing this thing, this is the first time I've ever listened to the entire album in its entirety.
What?
Um, any other time I've heard it, I've listened to it as parts of compilations or playlists. So I can't say that I don't know the album because I know most of the songs in the album.
Right.
But to say that I've sat with it in its entirety, I didn't do that until just recently. But when I listen to it, and I listen to it outside of just knowing the songs, it's just one of those things that I feel like it has to be consumed as an experience. Like I feel like the album is an experience more than just it's like a great hip hop album or even a great debut album. It's a entire experience.
Yeah, good point. Kind of like the Who's Tommy or Quadrophenia. It's one of those albums like Sergeant Pepper. You sort of experience the whole thing and you sort of kick back and just put it in your ears and leave it there for the next 30, 40 minutes, whatever it is, whatever the runtime is. Yeah, I get that. What about and again, maybe it's an unfair question because as you said, you have just listened to the whole thing recently as an entire album from start to finish. Where do you rank it? I mean, like you don't have to give me a top 5 or anything like that, but like for you, where is it among? Because it is considered a landmark album, not just rap album, but album of the '90s for sure. Um, where do you rank this album in terms of this group and in music in general?
It's so tough to rank it because um I feel like its importance to rap as a genre cannot be understated.
Hmm.
Like I feel like it's such a big part of the evolution of New York hip hop at that time. Like this is like 93. So like this is like right before some of the biggest, landmark records hit. Like this is right before Nas hit. This is right before, you know, gangster rap in New York became what it was. Um, so it's such an important album, but then at the same time, there's so many solo albums that came after it that I think are like personal favorites. Like as a big Ghostface fan, like Supreme Clientele is like one of those albums that I just think is like it's higher in my ranking of personal favorites than I would say this album is.
Hmm.
But like maybe you don't get to those great solo albums like Iron Man and like some of the other stuff in his catalog if you don't get this album. So that's why I'm saying it's just so tough to rank it for me.
I'm looking up and down here on the list of different publications and different sites over the years have done their own rankings. Rolling Stone, which just about everybody points to Rolling Stone in terms of their rankings, and they did most recently in 2020 the 500 greatest albums of all time, which I'm sure they've done. I would assume more than once. They've ranked this album at number 27. I mean,
I mean,
that's
yeah,
that's a big
yeah.
deal, man.
I mean, this is a genre transcendent album. Like I
Hmm.
feel like you it's one of those things where if you know a bunch of people that might not be rap fans, if you play this album for them, they'll enjoy it in some ways. And it's not just because, you know, these guys are just such great rappers. Again, it's just such an experience listening to this album. There's so much that goes into the album, the sounds and the quality of rap for it. Like I just feel like there's nothing else like it. And I mean, of course, it spawned a lot of stuff that came afterwards. Like um, you can see a lot of their influences on MF Doom. You can see a lot of their influences on stuff like Czarface. Um, but yeah, I would say it's worthy of like ranked among like top 20 albums, top 15 albums, top 10 albums, wherever people want to place it because of its importance to the genre and its importance to music in general.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It does stand out. It is, as I said before, a landmark album. Um, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on the formation of this thing, but man, to me, as someone who wasn't into these guys when they were in their prime and cranking this album out, getting it out there. But looking back on it, God, dude, it really feels like they captured lightning in a bottle. Like it was the best circumstance for these guys. There's 10 of them kids. I mean, it's hard to get, someone to guest star on your record. I mean, you got to get, all right, got to give them the studio, how much they want, or, well, he's got a beef with that guy. Well, I'm not going to record that guy again. I got heat with him. And it's, and sometimes the politics of some of this stuff, and not just in hip hop, folks, but in other walks of music, it's just, there's feuds going on. But man, Phil, we had 10 guys working together. Now, I mean, of course, the mission is to make money. We're not going to sugarcoat it here, kids. Yeah, the art is there. Obviously, the rhyme is there. These guys are great together and sound great together. But the point here is to make some money, make a profit. So that's what they were doing, obviously. But man, 10 people means 10 egos, 10 different sets of values, maybe 10 different personalities for sure, 10 different ways to irritate somebody. I mean, different senses of humor is oftentimes, different attitudes. 10 guys who all had a different day the day before the studio, and 10 different sets of dramas, something, maybe some bad drama, I don't know. But those 10 guys managed to pull it together to not only record albums, but go on tour and make this album in particular the classic that it is. Man, I can't imagine the organization that went into this. I mean, have we ever seen anything like this before this? And have we really seen anything like it since then?
I don't think we have. Like, I think this is about as early as you can get in terms of supergroup before there were supergroups in hip hop. Like, I mean, this is a collaborative effort, but like the amount of talent on this thing, and not just that, but just the amount of personalities on this thing. I mean, you've got Ghost and ODB in the same room alone. Like that's that's a lot to deal with in itself. And then you've got all these other personalities in a room, and somehow they managed to make it work. And again, like that, I feel like that's part of what makes this album and their debut so incredible. And it's just in a lot of ways, listening to it in totality, it feels like you're in a room. Not listening to a bunch of guys go in a booth and do these verses. It feels like you're sitting in a circle with all these guys, and it's like a constant revolving cipher.
Yeah, and again, everything has to work in harmony. Well, it doesn't have to. I mean, they could have done the thing if they all hate each other's guts, I guess. But when there's bad vibes in the studio, there's bad vibes between musicians. It usually comes across on the album. Sometimes it's more public than other times, but I think it would probably show through. But dude, there's a tremendous amount of synergy here. And before we went live today, I just started thinking about, okay, who can I think of before and who in the world has done it since? And you can say a couple of guys hung out, made an album or did collaborations, but man, 10 guys, that still blows my mind. And kids, if you're keeping notes at home, we're talking about RZA, GZA, Inspectah Deck, U-God, Ghostface Killah, Method Man, Raekwon, Masta Killa, and Cappadonna. So, dude, crazy.
Yeah, we're talking about at that time, impoverished youth coming together and doing this. This is not like established artists, like at their peak, coming together and doing this. These are all unknowns at the time.
Oh, good point. And I left off ODB. No disrespect to the memory of ODB. Didn't mean to do that. Dude, he's the personality of this bunch. He is he's the wild card, you'd have to say, the kind of the unpredictable one. At least that's the way it seems to me, man. I mean, is that pretty much on the money, I guess, for this guy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much kung fu influence in this album, and in the formation of the group, and it just, if you look at the group as like a clan of like ninja assassins, like ODB is like the one that is like drinking whiskey the whole time, and he's like the drunken master of the group. Like right. That's his role. Like he's the guy that you're looking at this guy like, this guy, what even is this guy? And he's like still like top of his game here on this album.
Yeah. Oh my God, so much. And you know, we're comic book guys, pro wrestling guys, and you meant that stuff comes through in this. It's the flair for the dramatic, the theatricals at play here, the whole comic book vibe, that, like you said, the kung fu stuff.
Oh yeah,
It's a fun record, man. Not just good, but fun too.
if Wu Tang was the Ministry, to throw a WWE reference in there,
Right.
ODB is definitely Gangrel.
Ah, well done. I can see that. Yeah, well done. Yeah, man. Like I said, 10 guys. That's still mind blowing when you think about it. Yeah, just craziness. Well, let's get into this thing, man, because I'm anxious to get your thoughts on these tracks. There's been different versions of this album. Usually, most of the time, the one I listen to on Apple Music is the expanded edition, which it has some remixes on the end. And it's good collection, but like the actual release had 13 tracks, and we'll go through them one by one here, and I'll get your input, Phil, and see what you think about this. The album kicks off with Bring the Ruckus, and this song features RZA, Ghostface Killah, Raekwon, Inspectah Deck, and GZA. RZA's producer on this, and he's the producer of the album as well. So, what a way to kick off this album, man. I mean, making a statement, putting the group up in your face. Man, this thing is, I want to use the word hardcore, but I mean it in terms of the sound itself. And it's just sort of blunt and in your face, kind of like getting hit with a bat in the head. It just has that punch, that bite to it. I really dig this track, man.
Yeah, I mean, but this is like perfect example of what I meant earlier, when it feels like you're in the room and it feels like somebody just turned the beat on, and you've got 4 or 5 guys that are just in a cipher. And that's what a perfect synopsis of what this song sounds like. It's not like this is like some intricate beat or like some glossy mainstream record that we're used to now with rap. It's the beat is what it is, and the beat itself doesn't overshadow the performances on it. And the performances themselves, I feel like it sets the trend for the rest of the records, where I feel like each verse steps up in intensity. And I never get the feeling that it's an ego thing on this, but I get the feeling, like I said, it's like a cipher. And when you're in a cipher, a guy gets up there and raps, and the next guy's like, I got to outdo this guy. So I feel like each verse in this record, like there's a you can feel like the intensity go up each time the next guy gets on, because the next guy is trying to one up the last guy. And so it's like once you get to that last verse, it's like it's at its highest, and you've got the group refrain, which you get a lot of group refrains on this record, and it's a part of what makes the sound of it so hype. Again, it's like being in a room where everybody is cheering on these guys that are all in a circle rapping. And I mean, from Ghost on the first verse to Ray, and I mean, I feel like Inspectah Deck is one of the most underrated guys in the group. Every time he contributes to a song, his verse is one of the best verses on the song.
Yeah.
And I feel like, again, it's because of that one-upsmanship.
Yeah, and I love that, the idea, like you said, of they're in a circle and they're each competing to see who can outdo the other guy. But then you have the refrain, you have them coming back together for the song. Like, it's still a group effort, but again, as we said before, there's different personalities at play here. How much of the, and you know, it's sort of a cliche, I guess you can call it, this idea of like old school rap used to be, you know, who's the better MC? Well, I'm better than this guy, and he can't rap like I can. There's still a lot of that. I'm sure today, maybe not quite as much as there used to be, but there's always this: I'm better than him. This is better. It's better record than that you're going to get from that guy. I'm the king. I'm the master. I'm the guy in charge. That kind of thing. How much do you think of that was going on in play here? And was it good natured, do you think, or was there some real competition with these guys?
I think it was definitely there. I think that was just such a big part of early hip hop, of, you know, I'm better than you, and not in a I'm trying to tear you down way, but it's in a competitive way. Like, I feel like at its root, that's where hip hop came from. Is a lot of guys getting together, you know, in a circle somewhere, getting together at a park or whatever, and I got a verse, that guy got a verse, and we're competing. So I feel like there's a level of competition that you can feel on this record. Like I feel like that atmosphere is a part of what makes this album so good.
Yeah, just that idea of a freestyle type of scenario where you're just sort of, and we mentioned that on the Black Album episode as well, where it's like Jay had the ability to just go, and like because he wasn't writing his lyrics down. Yeah, I get that. There's a definite vibe in this record of these guys sort of bantering, going back and forth with each other. You can't really say they're sniping on each other, but it's just, okay, I heard what you did, and I'm going to do it better. I'm going to do it this way. I think it's the best way to introduce this record. You could have kicked this thing off with Protect Your Neck, but that ends up being, I mean, we'll get there, but man, what a song that is. But for me, Bring the Ruckus is just, it's a perfect way to kick this off. I think it's a good way to introduce the group to you if you don't know who they are. I think it's good. Track number 2 is, and I'll just call it Shame on the N-Word because I'm not going to be all like that. This, Raekwon and ODB have the intro, the chorus and first verse is ODB, then it goes to Meth, and then it goes to Raekwon and back to ODB. This is what got me turned on to this album and got turned on to Wu-Tang to begin with, because this is in Luke Cage. And it's in the fight scene in the warehouse when it's, isn't it he and his half brother when it's the fight scene in the warehouse? I think it is the guy who was the villain of the show, but they end up working together.
You're talking about Diamondback, right?
I think, yeah. What was it, Diamondback, or am I getting confused with the other guy?
The other guy that owned the club was Cottonmouth.
No, it wasn't Cottonmouth. No, he was. Cage was in a warehouse, and they were playing this song during the fight scene because they took out a warehouse full of guys. And it had occurred to me, man, I hadn't heard this song maybe not ever, but that's what caused me to go download 36 Chambers. That's what got me into this band, was that episode of Luke Cage. So, dude, the beat in this, it's freaking addictive. It's hypnotic, man. I can repeat this over and over and over again. If for another reason, the beat is just awesome. Talk about this song.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't he play Bring the Ruckus when he breaks into that drug house in the one episode?
Maybe that's, you know what, I could be getting the scenes confused. Maybe you're right.
I haven't seen Luke Cage in a while, but I know that there's more than one Wu-Tang song in that first season. But Shame, like I think it's such a great introduction to ODB on the record, because this is the first song he's on the record, and he's really, I don't want to say he carries the record, but the sound of the record really galvanizes around him. Mm-hmm. It's such a quirky record, and it just fits him perfectly. So it fits that he does the chorus to it, he introduces it, and he has 2 verses on it. And that, again, that's not to say that he carries it in a way that, Meth and Ray are not slouches on this record at all. But like, this feels like an ODB record featuring Meth and Ray.
Yeah, it does. You're totally right. It really does. It's not the same song without him either.
No, absolutely not. And I feel like this was absolutely a showcase of who ODB is and what he brings to this group.
ODB has the gravel. Like, Meth is smooth as silk, but ODB has gravel. That's the difference. He's got that roughness, that grit in his voice, that texture that Meth doesn't have. And Meth is awesome. Meth might be my favorite Wu-Tang member, if I'm being honest. His voice and his delivery are just awesome. His rap is great, but like, ODB brings that little something extra. Yeah, it's not the same song without him, but man, again, I think putting the right beat behind this stuff, pairing the right rap with the right beat is an art in and of itself. And had this song had a different beat or a different sound, I probably would still enjoy it, but I can't imagine enjoying it more than I do now, because it's just, again, I think it's a perfect mixture of rap, or the rhyme and the sound both, man.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was RZA's whole forte on this album. He picked a lot of really, odd sounds and, things that you probably wouldn't have heard on another rap album. But I think that's part of what makes this album uh, so innovative, and why you see some of the stuff he does in his album duplicated so much in hip hop. Like there's so many things he does here that I've if you had never heard this album before, and this is like your first foray into hip hop, it's such a great introduction to the genre because there's so much stuff here that other people do later.
Yeah, good call. And speaking of RZA, the things that he's putting into the music, I mean, they're sampling stuff that, and maybe I'm just ignorant on this, but to me, they're sampling stuff that maybe I'm not familiar with happening in rap before. We always hear James Brown, we always hear Rick James, and with good reason. You know, you've got to sample the guys that made it work in the first place and brought that sound to you like soul music, and that's awesome. But man, like on the first track, he there's Melvin Bliss is in there, and he's an R&B singer from '73, a song from '73. The Dramatics, who were a Motown group in '64, and then on the second track you've got Thelonious Monk, jazz great Thelonious Monk, Sylvester Johnson, who was a blues singer and guitarist, and then on that's the first two songs. I'm jumping ahead a little bit too much, but yeah, track 3 we'll get to here in a second. So dude, right off the bat, he's sampling and using different sounds, because man, that's something else about this record. As I said before, the sound of the beats, the music in these songs is not what I personally would expect from a rap album. I mean, I love it. I think it's different, and I think it just adds to who this group is.
Yeah, and but that's why I was like, this rap is so important to the evolution of New York hip hop in general. I mean, there were a lot of other producers to come after that did the soul samples and did some eccentric samples that we weren't hearing before, but RZA was doing something that nobody was doing at that time. He was picking sounds from all over the place, from kung fu movies, cartoons. Yeah. Just anywhere, and that's why I say you can tell his influences on a guy like MF Doom, because when MF Doom came about and he was sampling like the cartoons, the Iron Man cartoon, the Fantastic Four, and really crafting his character around the samples, I feel like that is something that RZA brought to the genre. Crafting the character of this group around kung fu movies and that kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, very different sounds, but it works for them. So I was sort of referencing track 3. We'll get to that track now. Clan in the Front. This is all RZA and Jizz on this one, kids. That's who we're talking about on this, on the intro and the chorus and the verses. Again, Thelonious Monk sampled on this. The New Birth sampled on this. The Jackson 5, Melvin Bliss again, and as Phil referenced before, dialogue taken from some kung fu movies, specifically Shaolin and Wu-Tang, which is where they got their name. So Clan in the Front, Phil, another song. It's the third track on the album, and already you're still digging it. It's still good. Not that we expect a train wreck by track 3, kids, but there's plenty of classic albums out there that by track 5 or 6, you're like, I'll skip it. But so far, so good. I mean, Clan in the Front is, and there's just 2 of them on this track. Did you find that? I don't want to say odd, but it's different because there's so many of these guys, but there's only 2 of them on this particular song.
I think kind of the genius of this album and having so many guys on there is knowing when to rotate guys in and knowing who works best over which beat, and picking your battles with this, and just deciding which song is going to be shorter, which song do we want to flex and put everyone on. And I think they did a fantastic job of that. Again, that's when you go back to Shame. Like, Shame works because it had the right combination of guys on it.
Right.
And I feel like this song works for the same reason. One of the things that I noticed listening to the album entirety is that it's not just that the beats are so eccentric and they're so different. It's that everybody's voices kind of work as an instrument on these things. And it's like like everybody brings such a different vocal performance. Everybody has like a different cadence to their voice, and because of that, you add that sound on top of the beat, and it's like it's hard to explain, but it's like another instrument in is going on with all these other sounds going on at the same time.
Yeah, and it's again just the two guys on this one, and yeah, man, God, there's so much at play here, not just in this song, but really on the whole album. So many different elements at work to make this thing click along the way it does. I really dig this song. It's not my favorite on the album, but it doesn't mean it's my least favorite either. I really enjoy this one.
Yeah.
Have we got to your favorite yet? We're only 3 songs in, but have we got to your favorite yet, or is that still coming?
No, I haven't got to my favorite song yet. But I feel like there's so much to like about this song, and there's so much about this song that kind of is a peek into what makes this album good. Like a lot of refrains in there, like the woo chant, the woo woo.
Oh, that's
woo.
good.
It's such a big part of like the creative effort that went into this thing. And again, it just feels like these are just guys in a room. Like everybody's just adding their part to the potluck, kind of. Like it's not like it doesn't feel like this is like some super overproduced thing. It just felt like, okay, next man up.
Yeah, and something about the way this song kicks off, and that it just like I could just envision RZA standing up and just not reading from anything, just starts throwing this stuff out. I mean, man, again, it's an art form. Yeah, I dig it, man. I love the sound of this tune. It's one of those ones that when it comes on, I turn up a little bit louder because I just like it. I mean, it's definitely got a kick to it for sure. I don't know if it's got as much of a kick as Ruckus does, but um, I would say it's on par with it for sure. Let's see. We've got moving right along here, folks. We've got the 4th track, Wu-Tang Seventh Chamber. This one has a pretty sizable intro. Now, the intro idea on rap albums. This is before X, but who was doing like the skits and things like that on rap albums before Wu-Tang? I mean, I'm trying to think of who else maybe was doing things like this. I mean, am I not thinking of somebody?
Yeah, I mean, skits were always a thing on rap albums, but I just feel like the way they decided to do it was just so interesting, and it adds to the atmosphere of the album and experience of it, because it doesn't feel like when these intros come in or these skits come in that it's like, okay, play skit here. It almost feels like, okay, all right, we just finished this cipher, I'm about to throw on another beat, and people are just talking in between them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like the skit sometimes goes on as the music is playing in the background on this album, and then they just kick into the song. Whereas with X, a lot of his stuff, it flat out says on track listing skit. So a lot of times, honestly, I'll skip it because I just want to get to the next song. But they're interwoven on this album, which I think is a smart move. I mean, it makes you invest in it. I mean, I wonder how much of the stuff, and I don't have enough here in front of me to tell you if it is or isn't. I wonder how many of these skits were true to life, or if it's something they wrote just for the album. I wonder how much of that is the real thing, or just fiction for the sake of the song.
Yeah, I don't know, but it seems effortless. Like it just fits perfectly with the vibe of the album. So you can't even tell if it is.
And it feels like a real conversation a lot of times too when they're talking through these skits. It doesn't feel like it's rehearsed, and doesn't feel like they're reading from anything. It just feels like an actual conversation. They just happen to catch it on there. And I'm trying to think of which one it is when the guy says, "Is he dead?" He goes, "What do you mean? Is he dead?" They all just get up in arms about it. It just feels like a real conversation, man. I love that about this stuff. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, this is a good another good representation of this album. Let's see. So on Wu-Tang Seventh Chamber, track number 4, man, there's a lot of stuff to break out of this. A lot of I think pretty much everybody's on here. Meth, Raekwon, Ghostface is on here. You Got Inspector Deck. Yeah, RZA, Jizza, ODB. They're all on this song. It's the first time on the album we see all of them. I think it's the first time we see all of them on the track together. Lonnie Smith is sampled on this. The Charmels, Otis Redding. And again, we've got more dialogue from Shallow and Wu-Tang. So this is probably, I mean, we've got intros in other ones here, but I think this is the one that's got the most complex at the beginning, with it being track number 4, Wu-Tang Seventh Chamber. So yeah, again, it's a good song. I do like it. Again, I've going through already 4 tracks here, kids, and I'm digging all of these. Track 5, and I'm not trying to skip past 4 too fast or anything, but 5 is very intriguing to me because it's different. And 5 is Can It Be All So Simple? Man, this is Gladys Knight and the Pips, and this is Libby Sifri, I think is how you pronounce it. A British singer. Is someone else that's sampled on this, but it's a lot of Gladys Knight and the Pips. Man, this feels like more of an R&B, I don't want to say ballad, but and I can't really even say love song. It just doesn't sound like the in your face, hardcore kind of rap, all these guys, competing with each other. This just feels like a more laid back kind of track on this album, man. It's a departure from what we've heard so far on this record.
It is. I mean, when you go from the first 4 records, and I mean, I feel like the 4 records are kind of your way of getting into the meat and going like, this is a group of like amazing MCs. And I mean, I think once you get past track 4, you kind of understand what you're getting into. So then when you get to 5, he can kind of flex his muscles as a producer. And I feel like that's kind of what he's doing. And that's not to say that the 4 beats that came before that are not as good, but I feel like this is one of the most memorable productions on the album. I guarantee you, if most people have not heard this album in entirety like I hadn't, you're gonna remember, Can It Be So Simple, Cream, and maybe a few other songs that there's no way possible that you've never heard them before. And so this is one of those because the beat is just so memorable.
Yeah.
And the Gladys sample he uses is just so like, this is a can't miss beat. It didn't matter what you put on this beat. And kind of like I said earlier, where I was saying the beat did not overshadow anybody's performances on it. I don't feel like this beat overshadows any of the performances on it, but it is kind of the song. Like, I mean, seriously, you could have thrown like some mediocre rapper on this same beat, and that beat is still going to be what it is.
Yeah, and it stands out. It's different. It's more melodic, obviously, for a lot of different reasons. And I think you're right. I think the first 4 tracks are to hook you and let you know who these guys are and show you how good they are and how much they can go back and forth with each other. And then they bring it. It's like, all right, we got them by track 4. Now with track 5, we're going to show off. I think that's 100% right. I mean, it really feels like that. This is probably, and I know ballad's the wrong word, but this is probably the ballad of the album. I mean, it just feels like, and the dialogue and the lyrics in here don't really have anything to do with love song, kids. Don't take it the wrong way, but it's just because of her voice and the vibe of it and the slower beat of it. But man, and the bass hits in this song like that real thunk, that real hard thump that happens in this song, man. Like it's, if you turn it up loud enough, it's intense. Like you get that constant thud in the back of your ear, man. It's a good track, dude. What do you think this ranks on this album? I mean, is it like one of the better tracks? I would think
it's one of the better songs on the album. It's a classic record. Like, I mean, regardless if you've never heard this album before, this is like a classic hip hop song. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I can't say enough about just what RZA did as a producer on this thing, because it's an extremely simple beat in terms of what he does on it. I mean, yes, all of the samples and the sounds he used are very intricate, but the finished product is very simple. It's not overproduced. It's not it's not one of those things where I'm like, this loop is playing a little bit too long, or this part feels kind of overdone. And I just feel like that is a big part of the intention that he brought to this record as a producer. And I mean, this is one of the better Ghost verses on this thing. Like, I mean, I really like Ghost's verse on the fourth song on Seventh Chamber. Love the Inspector Deck verse on Seventh Chamber as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Ghost does this thing on each song that he's on where I feel like he raises the energy. I feel like it's kind of hard to not get hyped with Ghostface because he has like this high register on his voice. Like it's always kind of high pitched, and it always seems like he's rapping a little bit louder than everybody else. I don't know if that's just me. It's just how he always comes on. He always comes on like it's hard to not get hyped like and turn it up when he jumps on because he just always brings the energy.
No, he does. And no, I get where you're coming from. His pitch is different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and shifting back to Seventh Chamber. Yeah. It's I'm actually looking over the lyrics of this song. Yeah. Once you read the lyrics, you start singing it in your head. It's just kind of habit. But yeah. Again, I love the the Gladys Knight stuff. I think it's awesome. And I think it's, again, something different for this record. I find it funny how we go from 5 to 6 because 6, spoiler alert, this is my favorite song on the album. I freaking love this song. I'm a sucker for a good hook. I'm a sucker for a good beat. I love Protect Your Neck, and we'll get there, right? But, dude, The Mystery of Chex Boxing is my freaking favorite song on this album. I can't help it. It's one of those, that horn that's in the music in the background, and it's got that little rhythm, that little sound. Dude, I freaking love this song to death. I mean, this is my favorite one. This features Meth, You Got, Inspector Deck, Raekwon, ODB, Ghostface, and Master Killa. And it may be the first time we see Master Killa on this entire thing. It is actually, which is crazy.
Yeah. You Got and Master Killa are like, they are kind of underappreciated members of the group. Like they're not among like the most famous members. They didn't have like the big iconic solo runs like Raekwon or Meth or Ghostface. So I feel like they fall lower on people's, recognition. But man, Master Killa has 2 really good verses on this song. Like especially his second verse, and that goes back to what I said earlier with the one-upsmanship, because Ghostface has a great verse. Like Ghostface is possibly my favorite member, and I won't say possibly, he is my favorite member of the group. Mm-hmm. Ghostface has a great verse, like right after Master Killa's verse, early in the record, and Master Killa comes after that verse. It comes with an even better verse. And this is probably my favorite OD verse on the entire album.
Wow.
His verse on here is just so dope. Like the way he goes all the way from his delivery and goes into almost like his sing-songy style that he does and introduces Ghost's verse. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, once I hear this song in my head, raw, I'm gonna give it to you with no trivia. Raw like cocaine straight from Bolivia. Like, dude, I don't know, man. It's just there's just such a rhythm to this, man.
Yeah, love ODB's verse on here. Kicking rhymes like Jim Kelly. Come on, man.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. You can't. Again, once I hear it in my head, I start rapping it in my head. So, the last thing you kids want to hear is Tom rap. I assure you of that. So, Tom Clark 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark 6M Podcast sent you. I'm not exactly an MC over here. Yeah, homicide's illegal and death is a penalty. What justifies the homicide when he dies? In his own iniquity. It's the master of the mantis rapture coming at you. Dude, shut up. That's like poetry, man. That's good stuff. We have an APB on an MC Killer. Looks like the work of a master. Evidence indicates that his stature, merciless like a terrorist, hard to capture. Dude, that's good stuff.
I'm telling you, Master Killer, he went off on this record. Like I feel like he he has something to prove on this record because he's not on this album a lot.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Man, he's great on this song.
This is his way of saying, "Excuse me, track 6, and finally I'm here." Really? Yeah, that's what it sounds like for sure. And you're right, man. As far as him and You God both go, I don't know that I've ever heard their names mentioned outside of the circle of this group, and I don't think I ever have. In fact, when I'm looking down the listing of the band, I'd forgotten You God. I'd totally forgotten the guy, and which is no disrespect, but like you said, they didn't. Neither one have like the high profile, post Wu-Tang solo joints, I guess that the rest of these guys had. I mean, wonder why that is, man. You think maybe do you think they were overshadowed by these other guys, or it just wasn't there? I mean, I assume they're still in the business, both of them, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what is the history there. I mean, there are certain guys that we knew were going to be solo guys from the second you hear these guys together. Like I don't think it took a rocket scientist to know that Meth was going to have a solo career.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, even ODB, I don't think it took a rocket scientist to go like this guy is so fascinating. Like you could throw him in a room by himself, and all eyes are going to be on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's my favorite song on the record, which is tough because I love I love every song on this record, man. But Chess Boxing is my favorite. I don't know how we do this, but we go from Chess Boxing, which is great, to Wu-Tang Clan Ain't Nothing to F With, which again is great. Dude, this is the pro wrestling promo portion of the album. This is where they're flat out telling you, nah, you don't want this. Don't step. This is a bad idea. You need to stay in your corner and I'll stay over here. But if you want some, come get some. That's what this record sounds like to me.
Can you imagine like everybody, like a huge crowd of people are going and standing in the middle of the park, and you've got two crews going at it, and one of those crews is Wu-Tang, and Wu-Tang is like revolving back and forth with each member coming up and giving their burst verbatim from this song. Like, who's beating that? Like,
nobody.
Like, who's beating that? And that's what it feels like in this song. Like, again, this entire album just feels like it's just these guys revolving around in a cipher and passing around like drink or whatever else and rapping. And this song definitely feels like this. It just feels like, if anybody wants to step into our circle and thinks that they can battle us, this is what you're messing with.
Yeah. I be tossing and forcing. My style is awesome. I'm causing more family feud than Richard Dawson. And the survey said you're dead. Shit. I love that, man.
Yeah, ridiculous. I mean, and of course, like the production on this thing, again, he makes so many interesting choices with the production. Like there's an Underdog sample on here. Like the theme from Underdog is like the undertone of certain parts of the beat. And so it's like, how do you make those choices as a producer to go, yeah, I'm gonna sample the Underdog theme?
I grew up watching Underdog. I'm showing my age. So yeah, I recognize that when I hear this song. Man. It's good stuff, man. I again, I'm reading lyrics to this. I dealt for Delo Bogart coming on through. Oh my God, not you. Yes, I come to get a slice of the punk and the pie. Rather do than die. Check my flavor. Coming from the RZA, which is short for the razor. Who make me reminisce true. Oh man, yeah. Good stuff, man. Again, this is another great example of how good these guys are. Not can be, but are. And man, again, in my head, I just hear a pro wrestler spitting a promo. This is it's one of my favorites, man. It's real hard. Again, it was hard for me to pick a favorite. Chess Boxing still is, but man, this is probably number 2 or 3. It's so hard to pick a favorite, man. But again, the samples are different. Let's see. William Watts Buck Biggers, American novelist and co-creator, who actually created Underdog. So he's given credit on this. Papa Was Too by Joe Tex. American singer musician in the 60s and 70s. Biz Markie is sampled on here. Nobody Beats the Biz, which is pretty cool. And something I don't think I mentioned earlier that they mention the words "protect your neck" in the album before we even get to that song. And I think it's done in Seventh Chamber. I think he says "protect your neck" in it, which is cool. It's kind of a Biggie move to reference your own song. Actually, he sampled his own song in his own album before you even got there, which is cool. But yeah, man, this song is good. Just about every one of these songs you could have put in Luke Cage, and it would have fit pretty much the whole freaking vibe of the show. So, and Meth was in Cage, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, that's right. Well, somehow, I feel like I'm gonna do this with every song. Somehow we go from this, which is excellent, to Cream, which is iconic. Man, this is Meth at his best, for sure. This is basically As Long as I've Got You by the Charmels. That's what this entire song is. That's the only sample given credit here. I mean, man, I love this tune. I really do. Talk about Cash rules everything around me.
Yeah, this is a quintessential Wu-Tang record. Like, again, like this is one of those songs, like what I said earlier with Can It Be, where it's like, even if you've never heard this album before, you've heard Cream before. It's impossible to not have heard Cream at least at some point. I mean, it starts with the classic Ray verse. I mean, this is to me one of the best Ray verses on an album.
So hit me with that verse because there's so much to remember here.
Yeah, he's got the first verse on the song, if I remember correctly.
Yep. I grew up on the crime side, the New York Times side. Dude, that line alone is good. That's what I'm saying.
The first few lines of his verse, classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
The New York Times side. Who thinks of that? That's something else I appreciate about these guys is the inventiveness. They don't just string words together that rhyme. There's deeper meaning there. There's I hate the term social commentary. I don't want to use it. Do you know what I mean? That sounds melodramatic. I don't mean it that way, but like there's more going on here than just we have to make these words rhyme. Like I grew up on the crime side, the New York Times side. Staying alive was no jive. Had second hands. Mom's bounced on old man. But then then we moved to Shaolin Land. That's good stuff. He incorporates the Kung Fu back in here, man. That's good stuff.
Yeah, classic Ray person. I mean, Meth is at his best on here.
Yeah.
It's hard to not say that Cream is not my favorite song on the album because it's just so. I don't care how many times you hear it. It's just one of those Wu records, kind of like Triumph, where whenever you hear it, it's like, God, this is just incredible.
And you know, dollar bill, y'all, is still being thrown around now, thanks to this, I would think. So,
yeah,
I use it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things here, like, and I mean, it comes across in the skits. It comes across a lot in this song and earlier in the record. Like New York rappers are just a different vibe. The way they talk, just everything they bring to the genre. You know, they're gonna let you know every time they get a chance. And New York is the mecca of hip hop. That's where it started, and you can't deny its influence. Like and just the way these guys talk, like even for their era, that word up, like it's just so
right,
it's so like it's just so prevalent on the album. Like it's hard to not feel the atmosphere of what rap was at the time.
You know, having said all that, this thing is 28 years old as we record this, which is mind-blowing in and of itself. But does it feel dated to you? Not just the music, but the lyrics and the skits. Do they feel like it's stuck in 93? Because it doesn't to me at all.
I don't feel like it's dated. I feel like it's a time capsule. I feel like it is a perfect encapsulation of what rap was kind of in its infancy at that time and what it was growing into.
Yeah, I'm with that. If we're talking about Meth and how good he is, we really get that on the next one. track number 9 is Method Man. And dude, if you don't know anything else, you know Method Man. For God's sake, you know that. If no one knows anything, they know that much.
Yeah, again, it's one of those records from this album. If you've never heard this album, there's no way you've never heard Method Man. It's an extremely catchy hook. There's no way you've never heard it. It even beyond some of his solo records, it is like one of the most well-known Method Man songs. I mean, this is essentially his song. It's essentially his showcase here. It's just such a good song. Like, I mean, I don't care if you're not a rap fan. It's hard to not get into the groove of this song.
Yeah, it's good stuff. This is one of those songs I think that, you talk about the album transcending. This song I think you could play for any type of music fan. They'll at least tap their foot with it because, man, it's so good. So good. Now, we were talking about skits earlier and dialogue. I tend to skip through the first half of Meth going nuts.
With the torture
skit. Yes.
The torture skit is just so, again, it's just such a big part of this album and the atmosphere of this album. The skit there, it doesn't feel like it's over the top in a sense that we're being as gross and violent as we can. It feels like these are two friends talking in between verses, and he's trying to be as gross as possible, and then you got the other guy trying to one up him and be as gross as possible too. Like I said, it's such a big part of the character and experience of this album,
and it works because they're gross.
It's so cartoonishly violent. Like, it's hard to even take it seriously.
Yeah, it's like Wile E. Coyote except way more explicit. Yeah, I love this song. I love him. He's one of those commercial crossovers, I guess, if you want to call him. But I don't know. Maybe you'll have a different take. I don't know that I ever felt like what does the term sellout even mean? That you made money? That's not fair. But if anybody's ever accused him of that, I think it's misinformed. I don't look at him as that. I think, like the rest of the guys in this group, he's a businessman, and he takes business opportunities as they come. And it's never felt to me like he's changed his style to fit any certain audience. It just feels like he does his thing, like he's doing on this record. Do you get that vibe from Meth over the years that he's sort of the same guy he was before? Or do you think he's changed?
I mean, the thing listening to this song back and listening to this album in totality back is just not just seeing how much he has grown as a performer and as a entertainer. It's seeing how a lot of these guys have grown. And of course, Method Man has grown, I feel like, the most out of these guys. If you had to put together a list of the most famous rappers, not the best rappers, just guys that are just famous, and meaning if you list off these guys, anybody that doesn't listen to rap will know them. Of course, I think like the top of the list is Snoop Dogg. He's probably the most famous rapper in the world. That doesn't mean that he's better than some other rapper. It just means that you could go to anybody's mother or somebody's grandmother, and they know who Snoop Dogg is. Yeah. And I feel like Meth is the same way. I feel like he's done so many things other than just rap that he's among a different echelon of rappers. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that means that he has, sold out or, gone mainstream or anything like that. I think that just means he's grown as a performer. I think that means he's grown as an entertainer. There's so many things he can do other than just rap. And I wouldn't have pegged him as that at that time.
Mm-hmm. He did the voice of Ben Urich on a Marvel podcast that I listened to about the Fantastic Four. And I think they've only done one season of it. It was Marvel's, I think. And man, he's excellent. Just his voice work on that pod is, and I mean, of course, he's a comic book fan, so that's his thing, but very talented guy. I don't want to get too much off on Redman here because when you think Method Man in these day and age, especially past 10, 15 years or so, you think Redman as well. I don't know the politics behind this or the histories per se, but at one time you could almost think that Redman's part of the group. I mean, I wonder what, besides these guys are a brotherhood, it's a business venture, they're all working together. I mean, I wonder if has he been on stage with them? Has he toured with them before? I would assume at some point he has, because it kind of feels like he's the kid brother of this group in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I feel like there are relationships that these guys have made with other people where it feels like they're like spiritual successors to what
Yeah.
Wu-Tang started.
Yeah.
And I can see that their pairing is kind of like that. Again, if you want to throw the Ministry, comparison out there, you could see like the Ministry, splitting up, and then some random member of the Ministry going out and doing their own thing and becoming a tag team somewhere else. And no, Redman was not a part of Wu-Tang, but you could clearly see like and almost like a APA kind of like comparison there. It doesn't necessarily work because, of course, Bradshaw was part of the Ministry, but it has that same kind of has that same thing where they just went off and they were a duo, separate of something he already did that was already great. Yeah, it just feels like that. And I mean, there's other things, like I said, Czarface earlier, like Inspector Deck doing stuff with Czarface and doing his own thing. It in a lot of ways feels like the spiritual successor to Wu-Tang because the sound is similar. Like the way that they produce for the group and the way that they sample, it's very similar to stuff RZA did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you said, trendsetters, man. RZA setting the bar that we didn't know needed to be set, but he totally did. And a lot of the stuff that followed afterward and years after this album, a lot of other rap acts, I don't want to say mimic, but they tried to borrow and maybe either improve upon it or use it for their own purposes, and that's fine. There's nothing like being imitation, sincerest form of flattery stuff. I mean, yeah, I would agree with that. You're the guys who are raising the bar, you're setting the standard. You'd have to say Wu-Tang's the guy setting the standard, especially with RZA at the helm as producer. I mean, he's, I don't know. I don't know if Rick Rubin, the Rick Rubin comparison is apropos or not, but it's like, people want to get that sound. That's what they're looking for. Cash wanted that sound. So that, work with Rubin, get that sound. So like, I can totally see where other rappers would go for that. We go from Method Man, track number 9, track number 10, because you know what I want to hear, right? I want to hear that Wu-Tang joint again and again. This is Protect Your Neck. So, I would say this is perhaps Wu-Tang. This is their Welcome to the Jungle. This is the song that maybe I would believe is the most requested, the one that people want to hear all the time. That GNR's done some great stuff in the past, but like kind of like Zeppelin's got great catalog, but people want to hear Stairway to Heaven. I mean, you think this is probably Wu-Tang's Welcome to the Jungle with Protect Your Neck?
I think it's definitely the group at its most potent. I think it is possibly the greatest posse cut ever.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, I'm sure people will put caveats on it. Is this a posse record? Because they're all a group, but it's still possibly the best posse record ever. And I mean, I'm sure you could come up with other Wu-Tang songs that, again, Triumph is just a monster. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Protect Your Neck. It's just like it's clearly, like I said, one of those songs off this album. And when people call it a classic album, that's why, again, you don't have to hear this album to have heard Protect Your Neck at one point. It's just one of those songs that it transcends this album. It transcends the genre. It's just one of the biggest rap records of all time.
I mean, in the opening verse, we've got a reference to Smoking Joe Frazier, troops in Pakistan, Spider-Man, the Lone Ranger. I mean, for lack of a better word, these guys are nerds. I love that about them. I could have a conversation with any of these guys about a comic book, and we could talk for an hour. And I love that. I basically love that about anybody on the planet because I'm such a geek myself. But the fact that they incorporate that into this music, and they were never scared to do it. Like, I would say that maybe some of their colleagues, some other guys in other rap groups or solo acts or whatever, maybe wouldn't put that stuff in their rap for fear of it being, I don't know, frowned on maybe. Like they have to go hardcore in your face rap. But these guys are like, this is who we are. We're going to put it in our rap, man. And I think this song is a great representation of who these guys are as individuals and who they are as a unit. I think this is If all they ever did together was this one song, that would be tremendous. Like, look what we did together and we made this thing work. This whole song plays like a classic rock song to me. Like the beginning, the middle, and the end tells a story. I mean, everyone gets a turn. I refer to Wu-Tang as the Avengers of rap, and had all these guys have to share screen time together, but they make it work. This song, I think, is a great example of all these guys sharing mic time, and they make it work, dude.
Oh yeah, Protect Your Neck is definitely the equivalent of the rotating, panning shot of the original 6 from Avenger One.
Oh,
like it that's exactly what it is. And the thing that I notice about this, and of course this is older me realizing this. It's kind of like, have you ever seen Catch Me If You Can with Tom Hanks?
Yes, it's been a while, but the DiCaprio's in it.
Yeah. So at some point, he's chasing Frank, and he gets one of his aliases as Barry Allen, and he goes,
right,
it's a comic book character, and he's like, he's a kid, and that's when he figures out he's a kid. I had this realization listening to Protect Your Neck and all of the comic book references, like you said. It's like, man, they're rapping about such violent and serious like things in this. You forget that these guys were all kids at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They were all like not that old.
Yeah, good point. I mean, they met fairly young, didn't they?
Yeah. These guys were not that old. Like, these guys were a bunch of kids at that time. And so just listening to it in that way and just getting this atmosphere from the entire album and getting this atmosphere from this song where it just feels like this is a bunch of guys that got together and somebody put on a beat and everybody's trying to put their best foot forward. Everybody's trying to come with their best verse. And it definitely feels like that on Protect Your Neck. It feels like this is a posse of guys. Everybody's just going to try and go, no, I'm the nicest. No, I'm the nicest. It's like, man, Deck is one of the most underrated guys in this group. Mm-hmm. He has an amazing verse on here. And, that's not to say that, Ghost isn't Ghost. Ghost is who he is. And, man, the way ODB and Ghost's verses kind of fit seamlessly together, I love it. Like, it's just so many, like, just how they go from each member to the next member in this song it's so dope.
The rebel will make more noise than heavy metal. That's good stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Rhymes rugged and built like Schwarzenegger. Man, there's so much of this song. I just love listening to this. This is my second favorite song on the record. Is this your favorite? Have we gotten there? We have gotten there, haven't we?
I think Cream is my favorite
song
on the album. If it's not Cream, it's probably Protect Your Neck, but it almost feels like it feels like that's cheating. It's almost like saying that your favorite Jay-Z song is like Hard Knock Life. Like, it's a song everybody knows. Like, that's everybody's favorite record, saying Cream. But again, Cream is just so good. How can you deny it?
Yeah, ODB comes in like crazy, cursing up a storm, but it's okay because his part of the song you can't replicate. And I saw this performed recently. I want to say recently, I'm talking about it a few years ago, whatever it's been. I think it was on, wasn't Kimmel. Was it Kimmel? Was Jimmy Kimmel maybe. But ODB's son, who, by the way, looks just like him and sounds like him too, came on stage and did his dad's part, and man, killed it. Like, they didn't miss a beat. And you would think it'd be the whole John and Julian Lennon thing where it's like, I don't want to be in his shadow, but it feels like he just slid right in and they love him and he's their family. And man, the magic is still there, Phil. I don't know the last time you watched these guys together, but dude, they still click like any family would. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I haven't watched the miniseries that's on Hulu, but correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't his son play him in the show?
I think you're right. I've seen the first 3 episodes, and then for some reason I put it down and have not gone back. I don't know why. The episodes are fairly long, and dude, you got to commit time. It's not just a half-hour sitcom you just turn off, you don't digest it. Like, you have to digest this show. It's really well made, by the way.
Yeah, I've seen the documentary, the Showtime documentary about them, but I haven't seen the Hulu series.
It's good. The actors are excellent in it, but no, I think you're right. I think ODB's son does play him in the show. I have not seen that Showtime doc, but I do want to check it out, man. I may subscribe, do a free subscription just to watch it and then cancel it because I haven't seen it yet. So, of course, if it's for sale on Apple, I may just pick it up there. So, but yeah, we can't say enough good things about Protect Your Neck. Again, kids, everybody's included on this. I don't. Let's see. Okay, well, I take that. Let's see. Is everybody included? I think Master Killa is not on this track, which is all kinds of crazy. Everyone's on it but him, apparently, which is weird. But yeah, the JBs are sampled here, and again, more dialogue from Shaolin and Wu-Tang. Yeah, I love this song, man. Tears is a departure again from, and again, it's RZA going sort of. I don't know. It feels like we just saw like a great match, and now the next match is to bring you down, not like in a bad way, but just sort of bring the tone down, and then we'll go back up after that. I mean, what's your take on Tears? How do you feel about that song?
It's similar to Cream in the sense that there's a lot of graphic language. There's a lot of imagery, like the kung fu imagery and all the other stuff on here, to distract you from the fact that these guys are in a rough situation. They're impoverished. They're in inner city New York. And I feel like Tears kind of brings that back home. It kind of grounds it for you. And it kind of brings the despair that these guys are around. And it talks about like a lot of consequences of bad decisions of people around them. And I mean, that's prevalent in Cream as well. Because I mean, when you hear Cream, it kind of sounds like, the usual, braggadocious rappers talking about money. But it's also, talking about the decisions people make to get money.
Yeah, and you're right. A lot of the language is pretty graphic on this, but it's telling a story, man. And dude, I actually like this song. I like this song quite a bit. I'm not going to say this is the one I go to before I go to anything else in this album because I don't, but I do enjoy this song. How do you think that this one, and we kind of just covered it just now, but in terms of maybe, and we'll flip back up to can it be also simple? Again, it's another departure. You think it's on the same level as that song, or it's just sort of a different tone, maybe?
It's on the same tone. I think that they cleverly let you know about their surroundings a lot in this album. It's still very much grounded in New York. But like I said, they do such a great job of making it feel like such an intimate and atmospheric experience. So you kind of forget in some ways. I mean, of course, I think this song is the precursor for a lot of Ghost's solo career. Like, there's so many of his solo songs that I feel like you could clearly see the influences here.
Yeah, and I love the hook in it. I love the sound in it. I do enjoy that. I mean, I think it's a really good track, dude. We're almost ready to wrap this up, kids, because we end it with Wu-Tang's Seventh Chamber Part 2, and then the conclusion. I love Seventh Chamber Part 2. I like it as much as Part 1, and I think they end on a strong note. I think they bring this album home. So, what's your take on the way this album ends? And by the way, they sample "Make It Funky" by Ralph Vargas and Carlos Bess for Seventh Chamber Part 2.
Yeah, this really feels like the conclusion of RZA's thesis statement that it's everything that you come to expect from the album. It's like the same bare bones beats, and has the same kind of like the analog drums that you get from a lot of rap at that time. And then it has like everybody coming in and giving great verses. And again, like I said earlier, their cadences adds like to the instrumentation of the songs. Like, it doesn't feel like this is just like, here, place verse here, and it doesn't mesh with the beat. Like, no, everything feels like it's playing in chorus with each other.
Yeah. Like they're using the guys are using their raps as instruments, like not just
Yeah. Yeah.
talking. You know.
Yeah. I mean, to go with my statement earlier and saying that it feels like this is a very intimate setting where it's just guys in a revolving cipher. And I feel like the intention of that is there, but that's not to downplay um, how masterful you'd have to be to come with that intention and still make it such a great experience. If you just got anybody and you put some beats on and you had great rappers just freestyle over beats, it doesn't hit the way this album did. And the reason that this album hits is because, like I said, there's the way that the beats that RZA picked, the way that these guys are rapping over these beats, the way that plays in chorus with everything that's going on in these beats and everything else. It's like that's the magic of this album. It's not just a bunch of guys that are really good at rapping over some beats like that. That's not just what happened here, but they do such a great job of making it seem like it's that simple, but it's not. It's brilliant. Like
Right.
it's no way other way I can put it. It's like I said, if there had to be some kind of brilliance to like those found footage films like Cloverfield, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They work really hard to make it feel like this is found footage and it's not like a huge production. And that's what I mean with this. It's like it feels like it's something as simple as a bunch of guys coming in and out of the room rapping, but that's the intent of it. There's a lot of other stuff that went into that to make it sound as good.
That's a good point, man. Because like years later, we look back at this and see the monsters that they became after this thing was released, and iconic is the best word for this band, dude. You got to say. But at the time, the phrase underground was used, like they were like underground rap acts that came together for a purpose and made it big and the album went like globally and went mainstream and got all this critical acclaim and considered maybe the best rap album of the 90s at that point, and maybe period, and certainly one of the best albums of all time. But man, looking back on it from where they began, like dude, you have to, like with Riz, and I know they get to that in the course of the show that we talked about before on Showtime, that Riz's vision of what this could be, of all these guys coming together and him producing, and they're all working together to make this thing work. Like, dude, you have to have vision in order to believe, number one, you can pull this off, but number two, that this is actually going to stand the test of time. I mean, to be able to see out of your situation and what you're going through day to day and see the goal in front of you and then actually reach it, dude, I believe, I don't think this is overstating it. I think this album is an example of the American dream right here, because you came from nothing, you set a goal and you got there and you pulled yourself out of your situation. I think this is a prime example of what we can be at our best, is when we decide, I no longer want this, I want better, and I'm going to get there because of my talent. Dude, I think there's a lot more message here than maybe we even realize sometimes.
Yeah, I for sure think that. I think if you look at it in that sense, and like I said earlier, that this album is an experience. I feel like this is uh RZA's directorial debut. This is him directing an interesting, almost documentary on wax of who these guys are,
Mm-hmm.
and creating this clan of just incredible rappers that it's never about, okay, maybe Meth has his own song here, but it's never about the individual. It's about the unit. I mean, even when you look at the album cover, everybody's face is covered. It's about the unit.
Right.
And I think that's what's so impactful about this album. When you look at what other rap groups have managed to do over the years, and why some rap groups might not have hit the peaks that they have. And it's not just because each individual is so good. I mean, again, this is a super group, but it's just what RZA did to get them all on the same page and make it such a collaborative effort.
Yeah, it's a coming together. And again, I said earlier, it's lightning in a bottle. I don't know if, I mean, they did it. They could do it. But you wonder, could anybody else have done this if RZA were not involved? If this group were missing one person, even with the fact that You God Master Killer were not the most critically acclaimed members of this group, if it were missing one of them, I still don't think it'd be the same chemistry. I still don't think it'd be the same vibe. I still don't think it'd be the same record. I think it took all 10 of them to make this work, you know?
Absolutely. I don't think any member was spared here. And again, that's all credit to RZA's effort here in getting everybody on the songs that fit their strengths and just getting this thing together. I mean, of course you could say that he's probably the most integral part to this thing because he had the vision.
Mm-hmm.
But man, again, this is like Phil Jackson. I mean, when you've got this to play with, when you've got some of the best rappers in the world at that time, then you could come up with that.
Well, he had some of the best players, but he brought the triangle offense. So yeah, that's a great analogy, man. That's a great analogy. Like they weren't winning till he got there. So yeah, good call. So there you have it, kids. Enter the 36 Chambers, enter the Wu-Tang Clan. Classic album. One of the best albums of all time. Again, forget the rap genre stuff. I mean, I think this, as we said before, it transcends. We'll try to put a bow on this as neatly as we can, Phil. What's your last word on Enter the Wu-Tang Clan 36 Chambers?
Yeah, just iconic album. It gets all of the praise that it deserves for a reason. I think if you introduce this to any fan of any genre, you get them on board. I mean, you don't have to be a hip-hop fan. If you're a fan of music, I think you could put this in front of someone and they'd enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is, I think for even the people that claim that they hate rap, for whatever reason you'd hate rap, I don't get it. But let's say that you do. I mean, I think you'd have a hard time not being able to take something off this record. It may be just one song. I mean, how in the world you don't like Protect Your Neck? I'm biased, folks, because I do enjoy this record quite a bit. I think this is maybe my personal favorite rap album. It's definitely, again, in my top 5. It's a Desert Island record, folks. It's how I feel. So it's definitely going to go with me. The main goal is to stay off that island because, I don't need smoke monsters coming after me and whatnot. I'm just saying that's the ultimate goal. But if I can't take the boat to take me off the island, I'll take this album. That'll be fine. So I'd love to hear more from these guys. The years pass by and everyone's doing their separate projects. I'd love to hear another big time album from Wu-Tang. Who knows what the future holds, folks? We can only hope, but we'll always have this one to look back on and rock out to whenever we so desire. And that is Enter the Wu-Tang Clan 36 Chambers. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.